welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to another tutorial. It's me, IJ, and I'm back with a new tutorial. If today is your first time of stopping by my channel, you are on the right channel. Welcome. My returning subscribers, you guys are amazing. Thanks for your support. Guys, today's tutorial, I want us to DIY this beautiful summer gown that you are seeing on the screen. It's so easy to achieve. I would like us to make use of Princess bustier pattern to achieve this simple off-shoulder gown that you are seeing on the screen. So guys, without wasting much of your time, let us dive into today's tutorial. I have my already drafted panel. I've made detailed video on how to draft a princess bustier pattern. I've made an off-shoulder pattern, how to draft it, how to draft an off-shoulder bustier pattern. I've made it. It's simple, it's easy to understand. So I don't want to disturb you guys by starting it afresh. So that is why I'm going to use my already drafted panel to achieve this beautiful summer gown. So guys, this gown is divided into two. The half part of it, which is from the shoulder to the half length, which is the waistline, and from the waist to the length of the gown. So the length of the gown we are working with is 41. So this pattern now that I'm using from the shoulder to the half length is 18 inches. So I have already drafted it. This is the panel of the off shoulder. This is the front panel. And this is the back panel. Do you see it? So I have my first part of the tutorial we are making, which is the half length from the shoulder to the half length, which is 18 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance, which is 19 inches. So this panel now is the half part of it, which is the upper part. So we are now going to draft the lower part, which is the skirt part of it, that is going to be used to join to the upper part to achieve our beautiful gown. So guys, now I will use this pattern, the off-shoulder bustier pattern, to cut out the upper part. Then we are going to now draft the lower part, which is the skirt part. So now I'm going to take my material. This is the beautiful material I'm using to achieve this project. Do you see it? So I'm going to place it now on the table for us to determine our gown. I have folded my material in two. We will cut out the front panel, then we'll use the front panel to cut out the back panel. So here is our starting point. And on this starting point, we are going to insert our waist measurement. Remember, we are working with the length of the gown, which is 41 inches. And this 41 inches, we are going to minus 18 inches, which is the upper part of the gown. That is from the shoulder to the half length is 18 inches. We are going to minus it from 41 inches. When you minus it from 41 inches, you are going to be left with 23 inches. So now we are going to insert 23 inches as the length of the skirt. You can insert it in this way by marking 23. You can insert it in this way by marking 23 inches. You can equally use your tape. Place your tape. This is your tape, 18 inches. You can place it here on your starting point and you take your 41 inches. Do you see it? It's all the same. So the two methods are going to give you the same results. You start with 1, that is you measure from 1 to 23, or you take your tape, you get your 18 inches, which you minus, whatever that is your half length that you minus from yours, you are going to place it. So we are working with 18 inches. So we place it on the starting point, 18 inches. Do you see it? Then we marked 41 inches, which is now the length of the gown that we are working with. So I'm going to do the same to this side. I'm going to do the same to this side, 23 inches. Do you see it? And on this side, 23 inches. On the middle, 23 inches. So I'm going to give it a straight line. Then we will now add our allowance. You determine any allowance of your choice. but I'm going to add 1 seam allowance, 1 inch seam allowance, because I'm going to use the lining to turn it. So that is why I'm adding 1 seam allowance. Do you see it? This is our allowance. Now we have inserted our vertical measurement, which is 41 inches. So now we are going to insert our inches by placing our 18 inches here. This is the waist. Now we place our 18 inches on the waist. Do you see it? The next thing we are going to determine is the hip. And the hip, from the shoulder to the hip we are working with, is 23. So we are going to mark at 23 here. Do you see it? We are going to mark at 23. We are going to mark at 23. That is our hip measurement, 23. So now we are going to make it into a straight line. That's our hip measurement. By placing the 18 inches or whatever inches that is your half length, then you now determine your hip measurement. Then this is your actual length measurement. So now we are going to insert the horizontal measurement of our waist. The waist we are working with is 40 inches divided by 4. We are going to have 10 inches. So I'm going to mark 10 inches here plus 1 seam allowance as my dart. Is going to have a dart and also 1.5 inch allowance for the sewing it to the back. Do you see it? So on the hip now, we are going to take thing is our hip measurement. The circumference of our hip is 46. So 46 divided by 4. You know why we are dividing it by 4? Because we fold this. This is the front panel. We fold it in 2. And the back panel also, we are going to fold it in 2 also, which is 4. That is why we are dividing our waist by 4 and our hip by 4. So now, the hip measurement, the hip circumference is 46. Divide 46 by 4, you are going to have 11.5. So I'll mark 11.5 here. On this hip, if you want, you can add ½ inch seam allowance as is, or you can decide not to add. It depends how fitted you want it to be. But from this, I'm going to add ½ inch seam allowance for the lining, to accommodate the lining. So it's going to be 12 inches. 12 inches, then I'm going to add 1.5 inch as seam allowance. So altogether, on this hip, I have 13.5. Do you see it? 13.5 we have. So now I'm going to come down to the length. On this length, I'm going to minus 2 inches from this our hip measurement, including the allowance. I'm going to minus 2. So if I minus 2 inches from here, I'm going to be left with 11.5, which is the hip measurement. So I'm going to mark 11.5 on the lower part. Do you see it? I'll bring it down to the allowance, 11.5. So now the next thing is to connect our measurements together. So from the waist, we'll connect to the hip. And now from the hip, we'll now come down to the length. Do you see it, guys? So the next thing is to cut it out. So while cutting it out here, on the upper side now, remember to add ½ inch for joining it to the upper part. Do you see it, guys? So I have cut out our front panel. This is our front panel. So now I'm going to place it to cut out our back panel. Now guys, this is our front panel. So I now place it to cut out our back panel. Do you see it? Just place it in this form and add the allowance that you the side at the back. You place it and you add your allowance. So now on the folded edge, remember this is the folded edge of the front panel. So this is the back panel where the zip is going to be. So from there, I'm going to give 1.5 inch as my zip allowance. Do you see it? What I have here is 1.5 inch as my zip allowance. Do you see it? So this is my 1.5 inch as my zip allowance. So that is it. So the next thing to do is just to cut it out. So the next thing to do now is to cut here open. That is the zip side, to cut it open. Do you see it, guys? And on this side, if you want, you can shape it in so that the back is going to be shaped. Or if you want, you can leave it in that form. So now, this is our panel. Do you see it, guys? Our panel is so the next thing I will do now is to use it to cut out our lining. After cutting out our lining, then we'll now, guys, after cutting the down part of our gown, which is the skirt part, the next thing to do is to use our drafts. That is our already drafted off-shoulder pattern to cut out the upper part, and which I have cut out. Do you see it? I have cut it out. Do you see it? This is the back panel. This is the back panel. Do you see it? And this is the front panel. And this is the front panel. So this is the back panel and this is the front panel. So the next thing to do now is to use them to cut out the lining. After cutting the lining, I will now pad it. Then now, guys, I have cut out our lining. Do you see it? This is the lining for the upper part. I have cut it out. That is for the upper part. I've cut it out, and this is our skirt lining, and I've cut it out. This is it. This is the front panel, and this is the back panel. And also on this, that is our upper part. I have used facing to gum to it and also pad the bust area. Do you see it? So I have padded. This is how it's going to be. Do you see it now? That's the three panel of the front panel, and this is the back panel. Here is the back panel. So I'll go ahead now to join them together for us to fix the down part. And before then, remember, we are going to use our nipple to nipple measurement to determine our darts at the skirt part. So now the next thing for us to do, so that we are going to join them together, is to determine our nipple to nipple measurement. The nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 9 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch to it. That is 10. I'll divide it in 2, which is going to give me 5. Remember, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. Then add it ½ inch also is equal to 5. So we are going to use it to determine our nipple to nipple measurement, where we are going to insert our dart. So now, from here, the center point, I'm going to mark 5 inches on the front panel of the skirt. Then I'm going to come down by 4 inches. Then I'm going to make it into a straight line. So on each part, I'll take ½ inch, which is the dart allowance that I left, ½ inch on each part. Then I'm going to join it to the 4 inches that we came down. This is for the front panel. Do you see it? This is for the front panel. So we are going to take it in. And on the back panel, we are going to come down by 5 inches. We are going to come down by 5 inches on the back panel. So remember, we have 1.5 inch as our seam allowance. This is our 1.5 inch. Then we are going to come in to measure our 5 inches. Then we are going to also come down by 5 inches on the back panel of the skirt. Then we'll now join it together. And on each side, we're also going to take 1/2 inch dart allowance. Then we'll connect it to the 5 inch at the down. Now guys, do you see it? So this is for the back panel. We are coming down by 5 inches, and on the front panel we are coming down by 4 inches. We are also going to do the same to the lining. So now I'm going to fix them together, then we'll come back to take in our measurement. Now guys, I have joined the front panel together. Do you see it? Our off-shoulder princess bustier dart. Do you see it? I've joined the 3 panels, and this is the skirt part of it. I just use pin to hold it. Do you see it, guys? So I have taken the 1/2 inch dart of the skirt panel. Do you see it? I've taken it in. So now I would like us to work on the back panel. Remember the skirt, this is the skirt of the back panel. I have taken in 1/2 inch in, and also this is the other part of it. I've taken also 1/2 inch in from it. This is it. So the next thing to do now, from the zipper side, I want us to come in. Remember, when we are cutting it, I said it's choice. If you want, you can come in by 1 inch or 1.5 inch to make it to be tip at the back side. So now I'm going to come in by 1 inch. So now from this down part, I'll come in by 1 inch because I want it to be tip at the back. I'll come in by 1 inch. And from this waist upper side, this upper side, I will now determine where my zip will be. Remember, the zip will come from the upper side. So my own zip will stop at 5 inches at the skirt side. It will stop at the 5 inches at the skirt side. So now I want it to be shaped. If you want, you can leave it in this form. If you want, you can also apply this to make it to be fitted at the back. Curve it from here to join to this hip side because I want it to be tip at the down part. So now we are going to cut it off. After which, the back panel also, to avoid the puffing at the back after inserting your zip, remember to come in by 1/2 inch. From the zip side, come in by 1/2 inch and measure your 1/2 inch here. Then you connect it to the shoulder, that is the upper side. Do you see it? You connect it, then you cut it out. It will avoid the zip being puffed at the back. Do you see it? You just connect it. You just cut it off. And also on this side, also on the waist side also, I'm going to come up by 1 inch. I'm going to come up by 1 inch also on the waist side. So this 1 inch, I will now connect it to the side. It also helps it to reduce the puffing at the back and also to make the back to be flat. So guys, do you see it? So the next thing I have to do now is just to take it to the machine to join the two together. That is, join the panels together and use our lining, which I've sewn the way I sewed the main panel, to turn it, and then we'll now derive our right measurement. Now guys, I have joined the lining to the main panels. Do you see it? I have fixed them and also used the lining like I told you to join it. This is the front panel. Do you see it? This is the front panel. I've just joined it and I use the lining to do an inseam finishing. Do you see it? And this is the back panel. And this is the back panel. Do you see the back panel? I've also joined it and also insert the zip because I did an inseam finishing, so it's easy to attach the zip. Do you see it? So look at it. So when I now use the lining to turn it, I now close it, both the sleeve, that is the arm opening. I close it and I left a little space here. This is where I now brought out the panel, that is the right panel. From here that I kept open, I now use it to turn it to bring it out. So this is it. Do you see it? I also did it on this side. So I'm going to use hemming gum now. This little opening, I'm going to use hemming gum to close it up. Then after which, I will now take the front and back. I will now place the front and back. That's how I will pin it down. That is the front panel and the back panel. Let me show it to you guys. So the front panel and the back panel, I'll pin it together for us to take our measurements. Do you see it? So I'll use my pin now to pin it together so that we can take our measurements. So now this is it. So the next thing to do is just to take our measurement, the measurement we are working with. So now I'll take my tape. So the bust we are working with is 45, divide 45. Now you are dividing it by 2 because you have finished coupling your panels. So now it's in 2 that you are going to divide. So we have pinned it, so we are going to take our measurement. So now from here to here, let us see what we have. We have 24. The bust measurement we are working with is 45. Divide 45 by 2, you are going to have 22.5. Then we are having 24 here. So we are correct. So we are going to take on each side 1 inch. So on this side now, I'm going to take 1 inch. And on this side, we are going to take 1 inch. That is the same allowance. That is the same allowance that we left. 1 inch. So on the waist is 40. Divide 40 by 2. You are going to have 20. And here I'm having 22. So I'm going to also take 1 inch. And also on this side, I'll take 1 inch. And on the hip, where our hip is 46. Divide 46 by 2. We are going to have 23, and I have 25 on the hip. So I'm going to also take 1 inch on this side, and I'll take 1 inch on this side. So we are going to use 1 inch, and the down, we are going to mark 1 inch down. So we are going to connect it together. So we are closing our panel with 1 inch. So all through is 1 inch that we left, that we are closing it. Do you see it? So we are going to close it by 1 inch on all the sides. So guys, do you see it? So now I'm going to take it to the machine, close it with 1 inch, then we will now fix our sleeve. Do you see it? We will now come back to determine our sleeve. Then we will now fix it, and we will see how our... Now guys, this is our panel. The front and the back have been attached together. Do you see how beautiful it is? Do you see it? So the next thing now is to achieve our sleeve. And in achieving our sleeve, there is a formula for it. And this formula is so simple. Minus your neck, the round measurement of your neckline, minus it from your round shoulder measurement. For instance, the round shoulder we are working with is 48. 48 is the round shoulder measurement. That is what we are working with. So now we are going to measure what we have as our round neck measurement. On the front side, the round neck measurement is 12 inches. Do you see it? Just put your tape in this form to measure what you have. 12 inches is our front neck measurement. So this is 12 inches. We put it down. We put our 12 inches down. Then we measure the back neckline. The back neckline is 13 inches. Then we put it down. So these inches, we are going to minus 1 inch from it. So on the 12 inches, we are going to minus 1 inch, which is going to be the seam allowance to join it to the sleeve. So we are going to have 11 inches on the front neckline. Then we minus 1 inch from the back neckline. We are going to have 12 inches. So the back neckline is also 12 inches. The 1 inch we left is to attach it to the sleeve. So now we have altogether 23 inches. So this 23 inches, we are going to minus it from 48 inches, which is the round shoulder measurement. So when you minus 23 inches from the round shoulder measurement, you are going to be left with 25 inches. So this 25 inches now is what we need to achieve our sleeve. And by so doing, we'll have our complete round shoulder measurement. So now minus this 48 from 23, we are going to have 25 inches. This 25 inches, we are going to divide it by 4. And when we divide it by 4, we are going to have 6.25. So approximately, let it be 6.5, which is 6.5. Then we add it ½ inch for seam allowance to join it to our panel, which is going to give us 7 inches. So now we are working on 7 inches. So now we are going to place our paper to take our measurement. So here is our starting point. Remember, we are going to use the length of 4 inches. Length of 4 inches. First, we are going to take our panel to know where we want it to stop. So from here, we want it to stop at 4 inches. That is here. So we are using the length of 4 inches as the length. So here is our 4 inches now. So these 4 inches, we are going to fold it both the upper side and the lower side. So we are going to add 1 inch, which is going to be 5 inches. So we mark 5 inches. Do you see it? We mark 5 inches. So now this is our 5 inches, which is the length. So now we are going to measure out 7 inches on the upper side. 7 inches on the upper side and also 7 inches on the lower side. On this lower side, we are going to add ½ inch for ease so that it's not going to be tight on the arm. So from this 7.5, now we are going to connect it to 7 inches of the upper one. Do you see it, guys? So we are going to cut this out now and place on our material and cut our material out. Guys, this is our sleeve. Do you see it? We folded it in two because this one now is for the right hand side. We are going to also cut another one that is going to be for the left hand side. So guys, do you see it now? We have cut out 2 of it. By so doing, do you see how we fold it? The left side is 2 pieces. By folding, when you open it, is 1, the sleeve. Then this is also the other one for the other sleeve. So that is why we divided it by 4. So now I'm going to use it to place to our material to cut our material out. Now guys, this is our material. I've cut it out, and by cutting it, I cut it double because I'm going to use one to turn the other. So I cut it double. So the next thing now to do is just to take it to machine. Use ½ inch to close the upper side, ½ inch to close this downside. Then I will now fix it to our blouse, and our blouse is ready. But remember, on that dress that we are making, it also has a fancy, and that fancy is that there is another sleeve attached to it that is not closed, but it's like a standing sleeve. So I'm going to use this out also to cut out another 4 pieces that we are going to use to achieve that. While cutting it out, I'm going to add more 1 inch to the length to make it open because it's going to stand. And I'm going to use boning to make it stand. I'm going to use hard gum stay to make it stand, so I'll show it to you guys. So guys, this is our two sleeves. One is for the right and the other one is for the left shoulder. So remember, on the gown that we are making, there are fancy sleeve attached to it, a standing one. So I have cut it out. This is the panel. So let me show to you guys how I achieve it. It's 4. It is 4. It's just the same measurement with the sleeve that I used. I now used the draft that we now made. I use it to cut out. So this side that is open is going to be on the armhole, while this side is going to be on outside the sleeve. So now I cut it out in 4. I cut it out in 4. Each sleeve has 2. Just take this, your draft paper, add 1 inch to the folded side. Remember, you are going to cut it open. That 1 inch you are adding is, add 2 inches, not 1 inch, 2 inches. That is what I did. Do you see it? Let me show to you guys what I did. This is the fanciful sleeve. Then this is the side that is going to be on the armhole here, that is going to be attached to the gown that we are making. So this is it now. And on this side, on this edge, I added 2 inches, and here I added 2 inches. I came in by ½ inch to the upper side and now connect it to the 2 inches, including seam allowance. Do you see it? So I now close it up with ½ inch. So having this. So now I cut it out in 4. So this is my sleeve. I will now take my sleeve. So this is the side that is going to be attached to the body. So I will now place it in this form. I'll also take the other one and also place it in this form. Do you see it? So do you see it, guys? This is the way it's going to be on the sleeve. This is the way it's going to be. So this is the main sleeve that is going to be attached, that is going to hold the shoulder, and this is the fanciful one. So I'm going to sew it just closely. When I get 2 inches away, I stop. Do you see it? I'll now sew it. When I come to 2 inches away from the sleeve, I now stop. Do you see it, guys? This is the way I'm going to sew it. I stop 2 inches away from the sleeve. So I'm going to do only the upper side I'm going to sew. I'm not going to sew the downside. So here, we'll now attach it in this form to our gown. Do you see the way we are going to attach it to our gown? We are going to attach it in this form. Do you see it, guys? That is the way it is. That is the fanciful sleeve that we now sew. So I'm going to do it and I'll show to you guys the final look. Now guys, I have joined our sleeve. Do you see it? Do you see the main sleeve? And this is the fancy sleeve that I told you guys. That is the gown that we are making have. Just look it closely. As you can see it on the screen. Do you see how it is? So when you wear it, this is how it's going to be. Do you see it? So this is the back and this is the front. Do you see it? So beautiful. So our gown is ready now. I'm going to put it on the mannequin for us to see how it looks. And remember, this fanciful one, I used the hard gum stay to add to it to make it stand in this form. I used hard gum stay. Do you see it? So now, guys, I'll place it on the mannequin for us to see how our beautiful gown looks like. Now, guys, this is the outcome of our gown that we have just DIY. Do you see it? So beautiful. I'm so sorry, the mannequin is a bit smaller than the gown. The gown bust is 45, while the mannequin bust is 38. So there's a big difference. So I'm trying just to show to you guys how it looks. So if this tutorial has been helpful to you on how to achieve this simple summer gown, has been helpful to you, don't forget to like, share and comment on my videos. And if you have not subscribed, consider subscribing. See you guys in my next video. For now,